nervous. I'm a teacher, so I'm used to standing in front of people and talking, but not adults. And this is the first time that I've talked about this, so who knows how it'll go, but I'm gonna try my best. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. Well, my name's Tara. I'm gonna go ahead and start and tell you a little bit about my story, give you some background. I got married in 2003, and we were happy. Everything was great. We were both Christians. We actually met each other at church. As soon as I met him, I knew that the Lord had sent him to me, that we were meant to be together. And so we got married pretty quick, I think 9 months after we started dating, and we were young. I was 22, he was 20, but things went well. You know, we didn't have a lot of money, but nobody does much when they first get married, and you know, so we were happy. Then probably 2 years into our marriage, he got hurt at work. He hurt his back, and it wasn't where he couldn't go back to work, but his back bothered him a lot. So he did go to the doctor, and after that, I noticed a change in his entire personality. He had always been a drinker, probably a lot more than I would have liked to admit, but he would drink beer, you know, every day. He would come home, get a beer, drink beer until, you know, we went to bed. But you know, it didn't really change his personality. I think he was so, honestly, I think he had drank so much beer that he was pretty much used to it, so I couldn't really tell a difference. But you know, when we would go out sometimes and he would have any kind of liquor, you could tell a difference. He hated me. Anytime he drank liquor. So that was the first issue with the alcoholism. He was definitely an alcoholic. And so we made an agreement, you know, we talked about it, and I said, you know, I know you probably can't even remember, but you're a whole different person when you are drinking liquor. And so he said, you know, well, I won't do it anymore. You know, I'll drink beer, I just won't drink liquor. So, you know, okay, that was great. So then year 2 of our marriage, things start changing. His personality changes. You know, but he says that he's not, I mean, pretty much he's coming home from work every day, grabbing a beer out of the fridge, going to sit on the porch, and he'll sit on the porch for the rest of the night drinking beer. And then, you know, I would go on to sleep. Sometimes he would, you know, it might be 1 a.m. and he might come storming into the house, slamming doors, wake me up, just to yell about something. I mean, it was just a whole different him. And so after about probably 3 or 4 months of that, I left and went back home to my parents. And because, I mean, I honestly was scared. I had never had the experience before of being scared in my own home, and of somebody that loved me like that. And so I was scared, and I went back home, and I really didn't talk about it. You know, I wasn't running around telling everybody why I had left. I just sort of moved back home, and I did tell my parents a little bit, you know, about he drinks a lot and he's not very nice to me when he drinks. And so I just don't think I want to be married anymore. Was pretty much it. So I lived at home with them, and we were separated. Well, during this time, our preacher, he's still the preacher at my church, he was like Adam's second dad. And so he got a hold of him and, you know, they really started, Adam's just, you know, he turned his life around. He started, you know, going to church all the time, and he was studying his Bible, and, you know, he was telling me, I'm not going to drink anymore. You know, I'm giving all of it up. And he really believed it, and I really believed it. You know, that's what he wanted, and that's what I wanted. So I moved back home. Things were great. And so after that, about a year later, I had our first little girl, and, you know, it was perfect, I thought. You know, at some point, I don't even remember when, but he did start drinking beer again after, you know, I came back, and he was not going to drink alcohol at all. He did start drinking beer again, and, you know, it seemed to make him happy, and he wasn't mean to me when he drank beer, so I wasn't going to rock the boat, say anything about it. So probably every night still he was having, I would say, at least 6 or 8 beers. And so we had our first child. Things were good. Then we ended up having, 4 years later, we had our second little girl. And, you know, things were great. We had 2 girls. We both have very supportive families, just great Christian supportive families, so we had that always going for us. And Adam had a good job. He managed, he was the manager at Sherwin-Williams. You know, he was great at his job. He was a great salesperson, and so, you know, things were great. And so I don't know when. I honestly couldn't even pinpoint. Maybe I was just completely out of it. I don't know, that I just didn't notice, but slowly things definitely started to change. He would get meaner than he usually was. And, you know, say he might be drinking beer at night, and he might say just horrible things to me. And the thing was, the next day, you know, I would try to talk about it, and he would never remember even saying it. He would even tell me he hadn't said it. I almost started thinking, I am crazy. I am imagining that he was so good at making me believe that, you know, no, these things, I didn't say that. And I don't think he remembered saying them, but for whatever reason, alcohol did not make him like me at all. So, you know, we would get in fights and things like that. It was always late at night because he had already, you know, had a lot to drink. And so things did start to slowly go downhill in our marriage. And I can remember he won a trip. He was so good at his job. He won a trip to Cabo, Mexico for a week, paid trip for us to go. And so we went, and this was the first time that I thought, okay, there might be another issue. He hated flying. He was nervous to fly. And so he had told me, you know, I'm going to get something from my doctor, like a Xanax. I'm going to get something from my doctor that I can take for, you know, before I get on the airplane or whatever. So we got on the airplane, flew to Cabo. We were in Cabo for 5 days probably, and the entire time he was a different person. But I noticed that whole time that he was shaking. I mean, the entire time shaking. And I would say, oh my gosh, what is, like, you're shaking. Your hands are shaking. And he would say, I'm still nervous from flying up here. And sometimes when he had taken 1 Xanax, I saw him take it before we got on the flight, you know, to calm his nerves. And so he said, you know, sometimes when I take Xanax, it makes me shake. And I was like, for 3 days? You have been shaking for 3 days. And I just could not, and it never crossed my mind, okay, well, something else is probably going on. It really didn't. I just thought, that is so weird. And so then I remember he was in the shower of the hotel room, and I was in his toiletry bag getting something, and I found a pill bottle, and it was probably half full, and it had Percocet in it. And I know that because I got on the pill finder and I looked and I was like, what are these? Because he wasn't on any prescription. So I got one of the pills and I looked it up, and it was a Percocet, which I didn't even know. I mean, I had heard of Percocet, but I didn't even know really what that was. But then I thought, oh my gosh, is this what he's been taking to calm down, for the trip? So I Googled some of the side effects of Percocet. If shaking, I think I said, is shaking a side effect? And it was. And so I thought, oh my gosh, is he taking these pills? I know this isn't his prescription. It was not, I don't know if it was in a prescription bottle. It was not a prescription for him for Percocet. But I thought, is he taking these? Did he just take these for the trip because he's nervous? And so I thought about it, but it wasn't really like any big deal, I guess. I didn't really think about it much more. And then we got home from Cabo. He was still sort of off and on in his personalities, just super mean sometimes. But he was a great dad to our girls, wonderful to them, especially the younger one. The oldest one, she was, in the 11, 12-year-old years at that time, and so she was starting to act a little bit like a teenager. So they would go, sometimes he would say things to her, and I would think, that's terrible to say to your kid. Like, what is he doing? And so, that was an issue also when that started. But for the most part, he was a great, attentive dad. I went most places with them and took them places. He got to where he wanted to stay at home all the time. And he was drinking more, so I thought, well, he just wants to stay home and drink. But still, I didn't know the extent. I don't know if I knew and didn't really want to know, or if I just, put it out of my mind. But either way, one day I was going through his phone, and I was looking for a phone number, and I was scrolling through, and he got a text message, and it said something about, I have your perkies, it'll be $50. So then I look up, I'm such a, I don't know. So I look up, what is a perky? And so then, duh, it's that's what some people call Percocet. So, it was this guy that had started working with him, and he had texted him that, and it'll be $50. And I'm thinking, holy cow, we weren't struggling, but we've got 2 kids. We don't have a ton of money. You're paying $50 for Percocets? What in the world is going on? So then I did confront him about that. I asked him about that. I was always very nice about confront. I say confront, but it wasn't like, what is this? Because I knew, that would not go over well. So, I asked him about it. I said, what? And so he told me, and I believed him, that he was getting them from this boy, and then he was reselling them for more money, and he was making money selling them. And so, I was like, that's illegal. I talked about that part, but never did I think, okay, he's taking these pills and he's addicted to these pills. This is where this whole personality change is coming from. But little by little, you know, things started coming to light. I would drive his truck sometimes. One time I stopped real hard at a stop sign and 2 empty bottles of Tito's came rolling out and hit me in the feet. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So supposedly he never drank liquor, but I mean, there were, and then I started looking for things, and in our basement, there was just empty bottles. He spent a lot of time in the basement cleaning up, and so I went down there, and there are just empty bottles just everywhere. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I have just been clueless, I guess. And so still, I'm thinking, you know, yes, he's an alcoholic. He has a problem with drinking. I still, you know, don't think, okay, well, he also has a pill addiction. Until one night when, well, actually, the first thing was that the day before Mother's Day, this was 4 years ago, I went with my children to, and my mother, to a thing at the church, a Mother's Day luncheon. And it was a lunch, so it was at 12 o'clock. So we got home about 12:45, and my mom brought me home, and when she pulled into the driveway, there was a police officer with his lights on, and he was pulled behind Adam's truck. And so, long story short, at 10:30 that morning, Adam had driven to Walmart, and I don't know if he went in, or I don't know if he didn't go in, but when he was pulling out, he hit a vehicle on one side of him. He hit it and kept pulling out, and then he ended up hitting the vehicle on the other side of him in the parking spot and just left. And so the lady that, it was one of her cars, she was actually in the parking lot and watched it. So she took a picture, got his license, all that stuff. We lived about 5 minutes from Walmart, so the police officer had tracked down his license, where he lived, his address, and pulled into the driveway, and the truck was still running, and he's parked under the carport, and he was completely passed out. I even think he had urinated in his pants, like he was gone, passed out. But the truck was still running, so that's DUI, because you're still, you know, the truck is still going. So the police officer searched his truck and found Percocets that were not prescribed to him. And so that's the first thing that I knew, okay, there's an issue with a lot of things. My nephew played Little League. So, and the girls had wanted to go to his game that day, all day, and they had been looking forward to it. So, I thought, well, my parents will be at the game, so I can take them to the game, and then I can, while they're at the game, I can leave them and I can go deal with whatever is going to happen when this police officer, I'm sure, arrests my husband. And so he did wait until we left and went to the game, and then he did arrest him. And so Adam texted me and said, I need you to come get me from the police station. They didn't take him to jail, which they should have, but his dad is a parole officer in our town, and so they all knew our family, his family, and you know, I think they felt bad. So they said, just come get him at the police station. So I did. I went there, and before they would let me see him or pick him up, about 4 officers took me into a room, and they said, look, there's a few things that you need to know. Your husband, we gave him a breathalyzer when the officer first got to your house, and he blew, I don't even remember the number, but they said that is the most we've ever seen on a breathalyzer of someone that's not in a coma in the hospital. And they were like, it is 10:30, it was 10:30, 10:45 in the morning, and he is at Walmart like that. So they said, a few things that we know is that he is a very high functioning alcoholic, because most people would not even be able to move after they had that much to drink. And, the second thing is, it's a problem, it's the morning time, and he's already had this much to drink. So, and a few of them were like, we have experience with this in our family. We know this is hard. I mean, I was just crying. Because at this point, I'm like, okay, well, I cannot deny this anymore, that this is an issue. And they were like, we've dealt with this before. We've seen so much of this. We will tell you that he will probably tell you that he can beat this himself. And so many times over our marriage, he did. He would get to the point where he would say, I'm not going to drink anymore. And he would say, I can do it. He would do Bible studies, and he really would try his best. So they said he will say he can do it himself. He does not need help. But they said at this point, the way that he is, there is absolutely no way that he can do this himself. So if he tells you that, know that he cannot. He cannot do this himself. He has to have help. He needs to get into some kind of treatment facility quick. And so I got him. He was angry at me, wouldn't even talk to me. We leave, we're riding down the road. He's shooting birds at all the police officers that we pass on the road going home. And I'm like, okay, let's just get home, buddy. So we got home, and I talked to his, at this point, our parents are clueless. They don't know that any of this is going on. I thought that, I didn't want my problems to be their problems, I guess. And I didn't want Adam to get mad at me. He would have been furious if I had gone to his parents about this. But at this point I had to. So I went to his dad, and I, told him what had happened, and told them kind of what had been going on. And so they were extremely supportive. His dad said, we will get a handle on this. He will go somewhere, whatever. So they planned, his family planned an intervention even. My pastor, all the men in the family that he was close to and really looked up to. And so he came, and they said, you have to go somewhere. We're taking you right now. We have it set up. We're taking you. You don't have a choice. And so somehow, I was not there, it was just men, but somehow he convinced all of those men that he could do it himself. He was ready to do it. He loved me, he loved his girls, he had to do it for us. And so he convinced them that absolutely he was, free of it. He was gonna do it. So they didn't take him anywhere. He came home that night. We talked a lot about it. He said, I'm so sorry, for what I've put you through. This is the end of it. I'm done with all of it. And so I was like, well, that's wonderful. So then I guess about a week later, one night we were at home, and he asked me if I would go. He had asked me if I would go to some fast food restaurant and get him something to eat. And so I was going to get something to eat, and the girls wanted to go with me. They had started doing that. Every time I would leave, they would want to go with me. and which was not normal because they always wanted to be with him. But they wanted to go with me, so I said, you know, he was in the yard doing some kind of yard work. I said, you know, I mean, he watched us leave. I said, me and the girls, we're going to get you something to eat. So about 5 minutes later, after we had been gone, he called hysterical. I could hear him tearing the house apart. He said that 2 men had just come in and kidnapped the girls, and he could not find them. And I was like, what are you talking about? I have them. They're in the car with me. No, they are kidnapped. I mean, it was just this whole big, I don't even remember exactly, but so we came racing home. I get there. He is hysterical. The girls, he thinks at this point the girls are hiding from him. He's looked in every closet in the house, ripped everything out of every single closet, looking for them because they're hiding from him. And so I called his dad and I said, listen, he's hysterical and I don't know what to do. So his dad came and got him. They lived about 3 minutes from us. So he took him to his house. And he ended up that night, Adam liked guns a lot, especially when he was drinking. He would want to play with guns and things like that. And so that night his dad said, I'll take you home, because he wanted to come home. You know, he said, I'll take you home, but I'm taking all the guns out of the house because you don't need to be. I had mentioned something to his dad about, you know, he doesn't need access to guns, because I knew, you know, he hated my guts so much when he drank, he's going to shoot me. So his dad took all of the guns out of the house and brought Adam home, and he was fine. He wasn't seeing things anymore, but that happened a couple more times in the next few days. And at that point, I had Googled enough about Percocet to know, okay, he's mixing all the liquor that he's drinking with Percocets, and he's got to get help. And so I would talk to him very nicely, you know, I've got to take you somewhere so that you can get help for us, you know, if not for yourself, for us. You've got to get help. And he, you know, would say, no, he can do it himself. He would not go. And I felt helpless, honestly, because I'm not able to physically put him in a car and take him somewhere and make him stay there, you know. And I wasn't really sure of what my rights were. Like, can I have him put somewhere? Because I'm his wife, or, you know, how does that even go? And then his parents, they were very supportive, but they also believed everything that he said. That's their son. And he's telling them, I'm fine. I don't need this, you know, help. I can do it myself. And so they're believing it. So it was just hard, and that went on for probably 2 to 3 months, where it was just like every day me and my children were just in constant fear when he was at home and when we were at home. I didn't ever leave them with him just to run, you know, to the gas station or anywhere, because I never knew what he would do, what kind of shape he was going to be in. And so, I mean, it was horrible. We just, I just never knew what to expect. And I never knew when I went to sleep, is he going to wake me up screaming at me tonight, or do I get to sleep all night? You know, it was just a scary time. Sorry. Then, one Friday, he was off of work, and when he was off of work, it was worse, because, and I do think that he probably drank a lot while he was at work. Thank you. I do think he probably did drink a lot while he was working. I mean, he was too much of an alcoholic to have made it through the day without not drinking. But when he was ever off work, and he would get one day off a week usually, it was usually terrible because he would drink, full force that day. So by the time we got home from school, it was just always bad news. So that Friday we got home and he was cleaning out the carport, but I got to where I could tell, just look at him and tell, is this a good day, a bad day? How much has he had? And so he wasn't even really walking straight. And it's, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We've just gotten home from school. And he's cleaning out the carport, getting rid of everything, putting it out by the road. And he was in a good mood with the kids, not with me. He was hating my guts that day. And just kept, saying mean stuff. And so I said, I thought, well, we'll go to the football game tonight. It was Friday night. We'll go to the football game and watch the Indians play. Because I just, I wasn't interested in having my kids there all night with him. They knew how he was, and that wasn't any kind of a way for them to spend their night. So I decided, well, we'll just go to the football game. And we did. And when we got home, it was probably about 10:30, I guess, and he was sitting on a couch talking to one of his friends about taking a fishing trip and planning it. And he sounded fine when he was talking on the phone, but I could tell that he was not fine. He was stumbling, he was walking around, and then he'd kind of, wobble around, and I could tell that his speech was slurred. And so he talked for a long time, and me and the girls got ready for bed, and the girls went and got in their bed, and I went and got in my bed and was just watching TV. And then the oldest of our girls came and got in bed with me, and then the youngest came about 5 minutes later. And she said, Mom, Dad is laying with us, and he did that a lot. He would go lay in between them and sleep in the bed with them. She said, he is laying in there with me, but you know how he is, where he talks funny and he can't walk right. That's what he's doing. And it's scaring me, so I'm just going to sleep in here with you. And I said, that's fine, just sleep in here with me. So I got up, went into their room. He was completely passed out. I was just making sure he was down for the night, because he never did. Once he passed out, he didn't wake up. So I thought, well, that's good. He's asleep. We'll just go to sleep. And I don't really know how much time had passed, but I woke up. I think it was about 11 o'clock. No, it was probably midnight maybe. And he was in our room saying something, and it sounded like gibberish. I still don't know to this day what he said. But he was getting something out of the nightstand, and I said, what are you doing? And he said something, and then he just slammed out of the door. And I said, don't slam the door. And he came back in and opened it. And then he just left and walked back down the hall to the girls' room. Well, then I hear a noise, and I thought that he had slammed their door so hard that it had come off the hinges. So I go marching in there because, I'm going to be like, what is your problem? And so I got in there, and he had shot himself in the head. And I don't remember that part. remember that. But I do know that and it'll probably come back. I've been told that the memory will probably come back at some point. But I know that I called 911 and our house was full of, paramedics, policemen, and I went and closed the girls in to their room, to my room, and I said, don't come out here. There are some police here, and they're talking to me about a wreck that happened down the road, and so don't come out here. Y'all just stay in here. Do not open this door. And they were like, okay. Kids are not dumb. They know that something has gone down. And so, I talked and did whatever, and then they said, you can call, you need to stay here for a little while and talk to us, but you can call and get somebody to pick up your girls and take them. And so I did. I called my brother, and he came and got them and took the girls to his house. And so they had decided, the police decided, what we're going to tell your girls is that there's been a gas leak in the house, and we've got to evacuate them out of the house, and we've got to talk to you for a minute, but then you'll get to come home, and their dad has to go to the hospital. So that's what we're going to tell them, if that's okay with you. And I was like, that's whatever. So that's what they said, the whole gas leak story. Anyway, so then the next day we got to, my parents, his parents got together, told the girls that their dad had died, and we did say that he had done it to himself. I forgot the exact words, but my youngest, she was 6 or 7, so she doesn't know the word suicide, So, anyway, it was horrible, of course. And so, and it still is to a point, my girls have been so, they have really bounced back. I think that kids are so much better than us a lot of times about that. And so they are doing well. If you saw them, you would say, oh my goodness, they're doing great. But I know, because I'm their mom, that it will always be, there will always be a hole there. And they struggle. And they always will, because, their dad's not there, and they need a dad. Kids need both of their parents. So, it is not, it's definitely, it's less stressful, of course, without him, because it was very stressful for all 3 of us living with him. And so, it's hard to say, and sometimes I feel guilty for thinking, it's kind of nice not to have to worry all the time about what's gonna happen. But what I'm here to tell you today is that, first of all, the fact that you're here blows me away. You should be so proud of yourself. To be able to ask for help and to get the help that is there for you. You are a rock star to me. And if my husband had done that, I absolutely believe that he would be alive today and here for me and here for his children. And I know that, I've never been in your shoes, and I know that it is such a struggle. It has to be, such a struggle. And I know that Adam, before he died, I really honestly think he just thought that he was worthless and that he was a burden to us. And he thought he was doing us a favor by doing what he did. And that could not be farther from the truth. Because you are not worthless. He was not worthless. His children are not worthless. They are, just them alone, just those two girls were worth it for him to stay and to get help. And so I know that you can feel like a burden to your family, or you can feel worthless, but that could not be farther from the truth. I promise you. I don't know your families. I don't know if you have children or a wife or parents, but whoever you have, it is worth it for you to stay. And I do know that Jesus will help you stay. He has helped me more than I can even. I could not have made it. I tell everybody, no way. I could not be here today if it was not for him. I can't count the number of times in the year after Adam died that I said, Lord, why did you not just let him take me too? Because all I heard was, I think he probably planned to shoot you too. And after that first year, I thought, well, that sounds like a plan to me. Why did he not do that? Because I cannot do this. But he absolutely showed me that I can. And you woke up this morning. He gave you the breath that you are breathing right now. And that means that you have a purpose. You absolutely have a purpose. You're on the earth for a purpose. He needs you. Your family needs you. So I just want you to know that whoever, on the days that you feel like you can't do it for yourself, then do it for whoever loves you. And so many people do love you, but do it for them if you have to do it for them some days. But you have to keep after it, because I'm sure Adam thought that he was taking the easy way out. He couldn't go through all the work that it took to rehabilitate, and it's a lifelong thing. But it is not worth it. It was not a shortcut. His girls won't have him at their wedding. There will be so many days that they want him. They cry on their birthday because he's not there. So, that is the message that I want you to use me as an example. Don't do what he did. You are worth it, and people love you. I know they do. Even when you don't realize it, or you don't think, or you think, you've done too much. You cannot do too much for the Lord not to love you. Thank you.